Good morning, afternoon, or evening, Ori fans. So lovely to have you joining us here for this All Cells tournament qualifier. I am the Roos is Loose, joined by my good friend Meldon. How are you doing today?
Doing great and very excited for this matchup between Lusther and Infinite. Should be a good one.
Yeah, these guys are both currently seeded to make the bracket in the top eight. Lusther is currently seeded sixth, and Infinite is eighth. Definitely both looking to improve their average times to hold on to those spots or improve their seeding, especially Infinite. When you're sitting in eighth, that means you're going to be probably going against Sigma or Ronnie, and that is a death sentence. Those guys are incredibly fast. So definitely a lot on the line for this race here.
Yeah, and both definitely have potential to improve their time, especially Lusther. Uh, Despite having that 4440 as a qualifier average right now, Lusther's PB is a 4155, which came in, I think, the fourth qualifier. Has had a little bit of difficulty since those, and now has just one last chance to put up a good time. So it was really interesting to see what he can do.
Yeah, he can, with a good race here, he could potentially bring his average down by maybe even minutes. So let's go ahead and note you may have heard this before, but this is not actually a head to head race. The way these qualifiers work is the players are just trying to improve their average time. But in order to broadcast it, we do go ahead and show it as if it's a heads up race between the two. So we'll still get to see some cool race action, but keep in mind the players are looking to improve their average, not directly beat the person that they are racing against.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't tuned in for the All Cells broadcast so far, but you've seen Ori before, the big difference between this and the category that we've been showing off earlier this year, all skills, is that this is a no restrictions category. So we'll be seeing a lot of out of bounds, warp displacements, teleport anywhere, and we'll try to explain what's going on as we go. But expect a lot more glitches and some very interesting gameplay that results from that.
Yeah, particularly in the latter half. The first half of the game, where we go around collecting our movement skills, is not that different from all skills. You're going to see generally the same progression with a few minor changes. But then once we've collected our movement skills, we're really going to kick the glitching into overdrive, and it's going to get really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. And it looks like we are kicking it off right now. Both of our runners have started. Uh, Lusther a little slow on that prologue skip, so a little bit of lost time there. Um, actually, it looks like it may have accidentally started on easy difficulty by accident. Does switch it over here, which is good. As soon as you get to the Frunky fight, that actually will affect the health of enemies, and since the run requires normal difficulty, that's a bit of an issue.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Lusther actually had a run disqualified for that reason because he did the Frankie fight with it on easy, and that ended up making the run invalid. Am I correct there?
That is correct. Earlier this week, didn't notice until a couple minutes into the run, switched it there, but didn't go back to kind of before that difficulty switch. So
It's unfortunate.
thankfully noticed this time.
Yeah, it must have been on his mind there, not wanting to let that happen again. So our runners have gotten to the first skill here. Sign. Oh man, looks like Lusther's having to menu his game resolution as well. Oh, you hate to see this sort of thing happen. This is just really unnecessary time loss. But yeah, you really don't want the game to be at a different size or whatever than you're used to. You want to be in your maximum comfort zone here.
Yeah, definitely. And thankfully, it's not very much time loss. Starting the Frankie fight right now. We'll see how that goes. Infinite did not have any trouble with it. Lusther doesn't either. So a little behind. But in this category, even up through into the cell collection, small time losses like this aren't really a big deal. You can have huge swings when we end up starting to actually do the cell collection phase. So
absolutely, the late game of this, the mistakes are so punishing that a lot of your quality of your run really just comes down to how well you execute a lot of the out of bounds and stuff. So a few seconds here and there, not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier today, that in all skills, when you see someone get to Misty and they have like a minute lead, you're like, oh, they can close this out. Like, as long as they don't make any serious mistakes, they're fine. When you're going into Misty in this run, it's like, am I even halfway through the run? Like, I have so much still to do. So
yeah, not only is there just a lot of run left, but there are so many clips and out of bounds and things that if they go wrong are a huge disaster right up until the very end. So really, like, especially in all cells, No run is over until it's all the way over.
Yeah, and we'll likely see a couple of backups from our runners on some of the worst tricks that they'll be attempting. Um, but neither of them having a lot of difficulty so far in this wall jump split, everything going rather smoothly. Infinite's XP looks fairly good. I'm expecting that he'll be grabbing the flower here, and then, yep, it does not quite level up, so we'll be able to level up on the way out, which is typically preferred by runners in all cells.
Yeah, especially there's kind of two experience routes we can take through the next area. One where we grab an experience orb and one where we get experience from a bunch of slimes. Notably, the one where you grab the slimes does get you a little less experience. So if you are planning to do that method, you very much want to level up on the way out because we get to break a bunch of brambles and collect their experience with the level up wave on our way out that way.
Yep, and Lusther does make it to the wall jump tree just a little bit behind Infinite. They've now collected a handful of these cells. The early part of this run will be mostly focused around collecting skills and some teleporters, and then we'll be doing the majority of the cell collection later. And it's about a 14-second difference between our two runners at this moment, so Lusther definitely taking a little bit of punishment from that early menuing difficulties, but it's far from insurmountable.
Absolutely. 14 seconds is absolutely nothing in this. I mean, if you flub any of your Terror Break setups or something, you could lose far more than that on just one clip, and there's plenty of those in this run, to say the least.
Yeah, we could even see, a decent swing in BRB, each of those cycles being around 8 seconds. It's not inconceivable that we'd be seeing kind of a 6-second difference after that, or maybe even a 2-second lead for Lusther. Although I wish no ill will on Infinite and hope that his cycles go well.
So you saw Infinite grabbing a 15 experience orb there. That does indicate that he's going to be doing the experience route where we kill some slimes. He's going to want to kill about 4 slimes or so in here to set up his experience for a time to level up later. It looked like Lusther skipped it, however, so he's probably going to be grabbing that 100 experience orb.
Yeah, that would be what I'd expect. And both of them doing an SA here in order to skip this cutscene, and picking up, at least Lusther picked up Quick Flame, and I kind of assume that Infinite did the same, as that's the typical ability to grab in this category.
Yeah, so you can see Lusther is skipping all of those slimes that Infinite is skipping. It definitely looks a little faster, but when you see him have to deviate for a moment to grab an experience orb, you'll see that it about evens out the time you have to spend killing slimes versus grabbing that orb. It's kind of just down to runner preference, really.
Yeah, at least in all cells, the slime genocide route is easier compared to all skills, so I think more runners choose to go for it. You don't really have to worry about kind of making the cycles as closely, but if you already are really practiced at getting that orb, that 100 XP, then it makes sense to just kind of stick with what you're used to.
Sure. All right, both of them have made it over the fireball platforms pretty easily. Infinite is on. He's kind of in the safer zone here. Lusther gets through the instant kill lasers as well. They're definitely both through the most difficult parts of BRB, but you still see people fall off these platforms every now and then, so not quite out of the woods yet, but most of the time at this point you're breathing a bit of a sigh of relief.
Yeah, and it looks like Lusther gets a pretty good cycle here after a reload, and probably has about the same time difference, so staying very close to Infinite through this segment.
Yeah, and we'll see at the dash tree, but I think Lusther maybe has caught up like a tiny bit of that 14-second deficit. It looks like it's maybe a little less than that now at this point. I'm really bad at estimating time differences, though, in my head.
Yeah, and it's it's especially hard to see in BRB through this section. Everything's so slow that while they're very close, I'm not actually sure how big the time difference is. Lusther jumps up to that lever at the exact same time that Infinite comes off of it, but I have no idea how long this little cutscene is.
So you saw Infinite mousing over the indicator that he's 55 experience away from level. That is absolutely perfect, and it's exactly where you want to be. That means we're going to just perfectly get a level up later on at the right timing, meaning he's not going to need to take the time to kill any more slimes. Now we can see both of them are doing what's known as dash stacking the cutscene here, where they're essentially going to try and layer 2 cutscenes in once to let themselves move a little bit earlier than you normally would on the dash tree here, and head down and start setting up the section below us.
It looks like it goes very smoothly for Infinite, is able to start pulling this lever, um, does not grab any of that XP, although you were saying that is already good on the XP route right now.
Yes.
All right. And Lusther is also through to this boulder escape sequence, which they will be using to get themselves out of bounds, and then they will also be grabbing this health cell right here. Looks like it went fine for Infinite. Lusther is also out of the ground with that save placed underground so that they can both rekindle and then die to get back underground. And they will now be kind of falling down into Grotto, where they'll be attempting the Grotto early cycle here. We'll see how this goes. It can be a little tricky in this category.
Yeah, the timing is definitely tighter than it is in all skills, and Lusther looks like maybe he fell off a little early or just didn't go for the setup, and then Infinite didn't quite make it in. So you're going to stay even on the amount of time lost by both of them missing that cycle there. Although, unless you're a very, very top runner, it's pretty hard to get that skip consistently in all cells. Very, very difficult.
Yeah, I know from talking with like top runners who get it very consistently in all skills, they still find it difficult. I think only a handful of top runners in all cells kind of are getting this every time. And they are very close, both on this double jump tree cutscene skip at the exact same time. And
so Lusther leveled up Magnet on the tree here. I don't know if this is a thing he does, but that's potentially going to be a problem later. You want to be leveling straight up the green tree at this point because we're trying to get to things like air dash and charge dash. And by taking that now instead of much later, that could be a huge problem for his ability to get charge jump and rocket dashes later. We'll see how he adapts to this, but that's definitely something to keep in mind. He's going to need to figure out what to do about that.
Yeah, that could require grabbing an extra ability cell from somewhere, and specifically one that isn't grabbed until later on in the route. So Lusther, I'm sure, knows this game fairly well, but that's still something that you don't want to have to figure out as a runner.
Yeah, I mean, Lusther is very experienced and has a good time in this category, so he may have the presence of mind to know how to get it, but especially when you're in a race situation like this, sometimes just the nerves and everything can make figuring out little problems like this especially difficult. So, going to take some serious presence of mind to recover this.
And both of them having no difficulty with this climb up out of Grotto, able to get the water vein. Lusther picking it up right now. Then they will be skipping this bridge cutscene, Infinite having already done that, and grabbing an extra health cell. We grab some extra health in this category early because since we won't be cleaning the water, we'll need to be swimming a lot in dirty water, and having that extra health is very useful. Lusther having a little bit of difficulty with this jump.
Now, this section Infinite on here is a little bit difficult because we've burned all of our energy on cutscene skips and opening that door, and we have to go through a little bit of a dangerous section. This part right here, you can accidentally get ramped and go into these spikes. Fortunately, he manages to avoid it, so he's pretty much in the clear here. But if you do take that ramp and run into those spikes, this section is very, very scary. Looks like Lusther manages to get over with no damage as well, so they should be able to get through this part without any difficulties.
I will say the one nice thing... Oh,
no! I spoke too soon.
Yeah, that's a very rough death, and that gives Lusther the advantage right now. Lusther is able to make it safely to that XP. I was just going to say that you can level up as soon as you grab that XP to get that full refill, but unfortunately, Infinite didn't quite make it to that XP.
Yeah, and it's such a heartbreaker because he was so close to getting his health refilled by that orb. He was just right on the cusp of being safe there and unfortunately did not quite make it. And it's pretty big time loss. That's an extended section to go without any saves.
Yeah, I know that personally I really like to make a save just before going past that slime. Many a times I've died to him in practice, and this category, the way it routes energy in this early game can be very difficult. And Infinite coming back is able to make it past the slime, gets his level up. We'll have that full refill as Lusther is entering the Ginso tree and will begin the climb up towards Bash.
Now, Ginso tree is largely the same as what we're used to from all skills, with the exception of in the puzzle room, we'll be using a minor out-of-bounds clip that's not allowed in all skills. But other than that, we're just going to kind of work our way up to Bash the same way. as you are used to seeing. Still extremely difficult, but fortunately, we do have a little more HP than you normally do in all skills, so you can afford a little bit more damage here and there, but you obviously still don't want to be taking it at all.
Yeah, with the exception of some intentional damage boost, because we are speedrunners and we do want to go fast, and we'll do it even at the risk of dying.
All right, so here's that out of bounds clip I was talking about on the left. Luster's going to place a save here, push this block over it, and reactivate the save. Oh, interesting. He's doing it by leveling an ability. I haven't seen it done that way before. But anyway, he's reactivating the save, and then the game tries to load him back in, but that block is in the way, so it results in pushing Ori into the floor, and you fall through and skip that entire puzzle.
Yeah, I think Lusther may have just wanted to get that ability leveled up in order to not continue messing with his health route through here, as not having reboot means that he won't be saving on any saves right now. So I think that was more just a necessary item to pick up at some point.
Yeah, exactly. So runners are used to taking a certain amount of damage in this area, and then using saves to set up their intentional deaths later. So by getting that, that just makes it so that it works the way he's used to it doing.
And I'm being told that Lusther got a 4-cycle, which is the expected mini boss if you have Quick Flame. It is possible to do a 3-cycle, but it is incredibly difficult, even harder than the 4-cycle without Quick Flame. And Lusther is now grabbing Bash and will be continuing along through the Ginso tree along to the teleporter, which of course we'll be using to get out of here without actually doing the rest of the escape.
One of the coolest things about this category is in all skills, by the time you get Bash, the run is basically half over. Like as you're getting the cool skills, the run is, you know, coming to a close. But in this category, because we have so much more to do, we get to get all of the fun, cool skills like Bash and Dash and Charge Dash. And there's still lots of run left to go. I mean, they're only 14 minutes in, and you know, Luster's PB is a 41, so you know, at best we're 33% of through the run at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And Lusther begins attempting this key dupe, and so far going well. Goes for this fast setup and gets it successfully. Very nice. Looks like will take the time to save, rekindle that save. Ooh, and does a nice sequence of double bashes, but unfortunately misses the very last bash, so has to wait for an extra shot in order to break that floor.
And of course, not trivial to remember you need to grab that energy cell there, both because you don't get it in any other category and because we've come through this area twice. So it's a little bit hard on the second time through to remember, oh yeah, grab that cell. So you always want to make sure you take the time to go ahead and grab that. Now, once Lusther on the left-hand side here finishes up this mini-boss, he's going to be teleporting back to Glades and is going to be setting up the first of our, well, not the first, but one of the first cool tricks that we do in this that we don't do in all skills. He's going to be doing a warp displacement, which is essentially a way where we do a teleport, but by getting on a moving platform, we're going to cause the game to sort of skew the location that you get teleported to and go somewhere else. In this case specifically, we're going to use it to get into the swamp area to go and get stomped.
Yeah, this basically saves some progression from the grotto teleporter, which we actually didn't grab, up to this cell, which includes going by a cutscene that we normally would have to skip if we went that way. So nice little bit of avoidance there. And then we'll actually avoid going through that cutscene again on the way back by going all the way above past the Ginso tree. Lusther now going for this swamp entry. Everything seems to be going well, and the shot does not phase through either of the ceilings there, and Lusther is successfully into this right area of swamp.
Very nicely done. So he's got his save down. He's pretty safe here. Going to be going and getting stomped. Infinite on the right is setting up his warp displacement as well. Unfortunately, it looked like maybe he flubbed some movement or something, so didn't manage to get the displacement. And now, unfortunately, has to teleport back to Glades and do it again. So has to do 2 unnecessary teleport animations here, which is it's an unfortunate amount of time lost to have to take, and you know you don't want to see something like that.
Yeah, and these runners were about 38 seconds apart during the key dupe sequence. So Infinite definitely doesn't want to be losing any more time than that. We'll have a little bit of difficulty even now catching up with this current deficit. Is now attempting his own swamp entry with this frog, as Lusther takes this fish up into the sky to get this energy cell.
Very
Lusther
cleanly done.
having no problem with that.
Ooh. Oh, man, what a save, but then unfortunately the shot phased through anyway. You hate to see that kind of thing happen. So a cool little note, Infinite is doing these double bashes on a controller with a method that he actually invented where he binds bash to his right analog stick and uses the dead zone to sort of basically release and then reselect bash in that 1 frame window that you have to do. So cool to see him using his own tech there.
Yeah, definitely. And there's very few kind of true KBM controller hybrid runners in these NR categories, so it's really nice to see Infinite doing that and making great use of the controller in all of the sequences where he isn't using KBM at all.
Yeah, even the controller players tend to use keyboard and mouse for this run just because a lot of the out of bounds and the clips are extremely difficult, if not impossible to do on controller. You really need the ability to use a mouse to select your abilities. So it's cool to see that somebody's doing as much controller play as possible here.
So up until now, Lusther has collected kind of just the normal cells you would have throughout this route. So I'm very curious, now that we're almost into the Valley Entry area, kind of what the backup is going to be for this accidental magnet level up. I think the most likely one that comes to mind for me is grabbing this ability cell from behind the 4 energy door here, and use this kind of refill from this 5th energy we're collecting right now, and that'll...
Ooh. What a phenomenal save. Absolutely great. You die instantly if you touch those spikes there. So to not only cancel his stomp but manage to grab the shots there and save himself is just super, super good reactive play. Very, very impressive.
Yeah, that was spectacularly well done. And Lusther does not grab that ability cell, so unless my math is wrong, I think is short 1 ability cell to level up to Charge Dash right now. Of course, there is the option of kind of just waiting until a little while later to get Charge Dash.
He may go either do it after he gets the Stompless cell, or he might... well, I was going to say he could go down and get the 3 bird cell down by the... by where the little like lever is, but he's going to have several ability cells before then, so he can just go ahead and do it a little bit later. This will be fine.
Yeah, the issue is that this is still going to affect the kind of ability route for the clips in Misty and later on in this run, so still some potential to kind of mess things up for Lusther, but this segment alone won't be a disaster. So
yeah, he is going to need to grab an extra of some kind, especially because he needs to get Ultra Defense to survive the Lost Grove swim later.
And Infinite is now in the Spider Sack area as well. Still needs to collect Charge Flame, so definitely a noticeable lead for Lusther at this point. Infinite having no problems with this, doesn't need to pull out any crazy backups to save himself over those instant kill spikes.
So Lusther having a little bit of trouble setting up his shot here, but as long as it hits, it's pretty okay. Any time loss of having to set up the shot is much better than missing the shot and having to come back around and redo the shot as well. Gets it correctly. Very nice. I suspect we'll see him maybe use the save well here as his way of leveling Charge Dash to get his rocket jumps now.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense. We do pretty much need rocket jumps at this point in the run in order to get up to the birds at the top of this area, so we can do Sorrow Bash to get into Sorrow a little early. So this is the point where Charge Dash is no longer optional, but Lusther does have plenty of ability points to pick it up right now, and does so on that Spirit Well. Infinite, on the other hand, is in Valley Entry, is stomping this peg to get into Valley proper, and will then be attempting Fast Stompless as well, and we'll see how that goes.
All right, Lusther is on his Sorrow Bash here. Looks pretty clean so far. Gets it very nicely. Looks very professional and easy. That is not nearly as easy as he made it look there. Quite a difficult trick, but a runner as experienced as Lusther doesn't seem to be having much of any trouble with it at all.
Yeah, and misses this first shot from the frog, but is able to break the ceiling on the second one to collect these cells over on the left side. And then we'll be doing this cool little out of bounds that I am so glad has been introduced into this run using this tumbleweed. Really cool tech to see.
On your right-hand side, Infinite shot looked like a very good angle to me. He's just going to have to race up to the cell before the shot gets to the rocks, collects it, and then does successfully get his fast Nautilus there. So very nice from him, especially on controller. That's definitely a trick that is easier on keyboard and mouse because you can use your mouse pointer as the aiming setup.
Yeah, although a lot of the controller runners have come up with kind of very nice setups to use for tricks like that, or the key dupe, where the KBM runners will just have kind of a position that put their mouse on. And Lusther had a little bit of trouble with this tumbleweed clip the first time, does kind of take an intentional death in order to retry this, gets it, and is through to the upper part of Sorrow and this key door. So very nice second attempt there. Doesn't lose very much time at all, and is now at the charge jump tree.
Very nicely done. That's a clip that can definitely give you some frustrations if it doesn't work correctly the first time, just because it almost always works, but then sometimes something just gets a little off, and you get in your head about your setup for it. But he manages to stay calm and get it the second try. Very nicely done.
Yeah, and this is where the run starts to kind of pick up in pace. Now that we have access to charge dash, we have stomps and bashes to cancel it and refund energy. The run can really start to fly. I love this part of Sorrow, being able to see that upper area compared to in all skills, and then kind of this lower center area during this kind of exit is a lot of fun. Some very cool movement here.
And once we leave here, we will be going on to Misty Woods next, which, if you're familiar with all skills, most people say is their favorite area. Unfortunately, we will barely be seeing it because we just go in long enough to grab a required cell, and then we're going to be clipping straight out, and it's going to be the first of many, many out of bounds coming up, so get used to seeing it.
And Infinite goes for a slightly different setup with the tumbleweed, and it is successfully through to the charge jump tree. Doesn't have very much difficulty with that at all. And we'll be doing his collection of these Sorrow cells as well. You can see on the tracker below Lusther's screen that the Sorrow icon in the kind of like 7 o'clock position is now lit up. All of those 6 zones will be lighting up as we clear out all of these cells in each of these areas. So you can kind of use that to track how the runners are doing if you don't know the run very well.
Okay, so let's take a look at the left-hand side of the screen. Lusther is going to be setting up a Terra clip here. Essentially, the idea of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to dash and save by spending a point at the same time, just barely away from a wall, and then leave the loading zone. And then when you load back in after dying, you are going so fast on the reload in that you actually get through the wall before it has a chance to load back in. And we can do that as a way to get out of bounds. Specifically here, we're doing it to get out of bounds and then go all the way down to Forlorn Ruins, which is so much faster than going in the intended way by doing it this way here.
This is actually really smart by Lusther. So Lusther also runs all dungeons, which has to do this Terra clip without an ability point, which is what Lusther just did there. So rather than saving and dashing, Lusther is moving away from the scene to unload it, dying, and then dashing on the first frame that Ori respawns. And by doing that, was able to avoid that point cost, and is kind of now into Forlorn, is back on the correct ability route, and will be able to pick up, I guess it'll be Ultra Defense in the next clip. So that's a really nice backup.
That is absolutely brilliant, and a great argument for running multiple categories, because you never know when you're going to be able to bust out a trick from something else to save yourself. I'm like in awe of the Galaxy Brain play that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and that trick ends up being very similar to doing like a door warp, where it's an input on the first frame upon reload, but there's no visual cue from the loading screen. It's just off of a death. So very impressive to get that. I think that was 3rd try, and that was just crazy.
Yeah, Lusther really showing like his depth of experience with this game in a wide variety of situations. And Infinite on the right-hand side setting up his Terra clip as well now, at the same time that Lusther was using a second Terra clip to get back out of Forlorn, gets to his teleport, going to be going back to Glades and doing another warp displacement quite shortly here. to go and continue our cell collection elsewhere. Or sorry, he's not warp displacing here. This is where we go back into Blackroot Burrows and we go do all of the lower Blackroot and Lost Grove cell collection here.
And I stand corrected, Lusther has not quite gotten Ultra Defense will be... Oh! Takes another death from these slimes here trying to get back into the RB. Unfortunately, Lusther did this zombie Ori trick in order to get a earlier charge jump, but that means that currently Lusther has 0 health, which makes this part a little scary.
Yeah, if he can avoid these slimes, this is nice because he's about to do another Terra Clip and set up another death, so being at 0 health makes it very quick to take an intentional death rather than having to do it from full health, but it does make this quite a bit scary as well. So setting up his Terra Clip over here on the left-hand side, while Infinite does the same to get out of Forlorn on the right. Let's see if they can both get theirs correctly. Infinite's looks good. Lusther looks like he's having a little bit of difficulty here.
I think Lusther may have had to make a small change. Normally, most people do this Terra Clip here with a left dash Terra Clip, but since Lusther had to get a different ability, had to turn it into a charge dash Terra Clip, so may have just been briefly confused at the change in the setup, but is successfully through the Light Grenade tree, so was able to handle that quite nicely. Meanwhile,
yeah,
Infinite...
this is a great example of just how intricate this routing is, that something as simple as leveling the wrong ability like 20 minutes ago is still having ramifications for Lusther here.
Yeah, I think at this point everything is back to normal, and it's as if Lusther didn't level the wrong ability, so it won't have kind of an effect anymore, but it is crazy how important this ability route is. And Infinite is also able to successfully Terra Clip down and is almost to the Light Grenade tree, where Lusther has kind of headed back to this upper area to collect this cell up here before heading out of this little area. But
now, Lusther has been missing quite a few of these grenades, and it's costing him enough time that Infinite is not that far behind anymore. I mean, he's now aiming the first of these grenades, and the second one is right up ahead, and Lusther only just now finished that, so the window is probably 30 seconds now, maybe even slightly less.
Yeah, this is definitely giving Infinite a very nice chance to catch up. And this is, I think, one of the most difficult sequences of the run is coming up through this area. The long swim at the very bottom of this area can be especially brutal. So lots of opportunities for both small and large time loss through this area.
Yeah, so this is a very, very long swim section in poison water with crushers, and there's 2 ways to do it. You can either swim through it and then use some saves to get your health back, or you can do a Terra Clip in, and we'll see what method both of these runners decide to do. There's plus minus to both of them. The clip, obviously you take a lot less damage, but it's a pretty precise timing to stomp out of it afterwards, so you can have a little bit of trouble with it. The swim, obviously you take a lot more damage, so you're in a lot of danger while doing it. So we'll see what method both of these runners opt for.
Ooh, Lusther having a little bit of trouble with this clip. I think ended up in the wall on the second one at least. I didn't notice what went wrong in the first one, but if Infinite gets this first try, Infinite has actually taken a lead here. Yeah, he's already through, although falls down, and no, Lusther did as well, so Infinite now just has a straight up lead going into this sequence, and now we get to see how Infinite does doing this swim, while it looks like Lusther is going to go over and do the clip into this area.
Very interesting difference here, and I've never seen the clip done from this location Lusther's doing it in. I've always seen it done on a lower platform, but apparently it works from up here as well. This is a cool variation that I've not seen before.
This is very interesting. Is successfully able to get to the cell, although Infinite has already gotten that and is heading up to collect the cells up in this area, while Lusther still needs to swim out. So a little bit of a lead for Infinite, and some very interesting kind of new clips for me out of Lusther. So it's very cool to see.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go try that after this because that looked quite nice. Did Infinite die? Or no, he's just trying to get back out here. He was just getting his health back. No, because we already got out earlier. He did die, and unfortunately has to redo this now. That's an unfortunate amount of time loss, and that does put Lusther back solidly into the lead here, with another out of bounds here to get into Grotto, where he's going to be just starting pretty much a massive cell collection through this area until we finish out the run.
And I don't know exactly what Lusther's typical XP route is, but I'm guessing that level up right there is a little unintentional. Typically, runners want to save the level up there for later on, so you can get an extra energy refill in. So that won't be a big issue. Lusther will just to be a little bit more careful about how he spends energy through this area.
Yeah, one of the most important sort of advanced strats in this run is routing your energy for maximum charge dash usage. And you want to use that level up as a way to refill your energy during a section where you're not going to get a refill for a while. So it's a little bit wasted there, but with careful energy management, he can still get pretty fast movement and not run out.
It looks like Infinite is out of energy, so he's doing this charge jump back up into Grotto without an SA, which means that if he hits the kind of the void timer incorrectly, he'll void out before he's actually able to make that. And having some difficulty with this. One option, if he chooses to do kind of this movement here blind, is he could just carry an SA through the sequence. Not sure exactly what he's doing. He may be grabbing that energy and redoing this Terra Clip, so that it'll actually have energy on the other side. That looks to be the case. So a nice backup because you do have some extra ability points right here.
Good presence of mind to realize that going over and getting that energy and then saving was going to mess up his Terra Clip and redoing it. So, smart category awareness from Infinite there to know that he needed to do that. Unfortunate that he's having so much trouble with it, but impressive that he was able to recover it nonetheless.
Yeah, we've already seen a number of very impressive backups from both of these runners. This category is already difficult, but as soon as things go wrong, it can be very difficult to know kind of what's the best method to recover from it, given the number of very complex tricks. So very impressive to see these backups pulled out in a race situation.
Yeah, very much agreed there. I'm quite impressed with both of these runners and the fact that the runs haven't died yet. So both of them are just kind of in sections that don't have a ton of crazy tricks. It's mostly just a lot of very fast movement to collect the remaining cells in this area, which is extremely satisfying to pull off as a runner. The movement in this category is just fantastic.
Yeah, I think maybe outside of 100%, which is not a very popular category, All Cells has the best late game movement. You just have such a long period of time where you have access to all of these skills, and it shows them off beautifully. And Lusther may be going for a very interesting Terra Clip that was found fairly recently. And I'm guessing because of killing that elemental, we'll be going for the setup where you actually set up on the ground here as opposed to doing a wall Terra Clip. And that looked fine, so we'll be taking a death here and then should be just right through this wall. Yep. Very nicely done.
Yep, very, very cool little clip there. And if you look on the right-hand side here, Infinite also doing a cool clip, which we didn't point out before, where you just bash onto that bramble, and for some reason, the wall, or the ceiling above it was coated so... I don't even know what the right word is. The wall there is so immaterial that you're able to literally just bash off that bramble right up through the ceiling there to get out of bounds. That's a pretty fun little clip.
We call that clip Butter Clip because Bash is able to just kind of cut through the wall like a hot knife through butter. And of course, you only have 2 attempts at it, as the bramble will die after your second bash. But it's not too difficult if you know the right angle, and neither runner's having any difficulty with it.
All right, so Lusther on the left is going back to Glades once again and is going to be setting up a warp displacement into Valley. Oh, no. Okay, so he does the micro ledge setup. He teleports directly to Valley. There's a cell here behind a wall, which normally you're supposed to have climb for to be able to get into. A lot of people warp displace in, but he's going to attempt to find a micro ledge here. Yep, and there it is. And he's able to charge jump to break that wall and get in that way instead. I don't see a ton of runners do that. That's a pretty cool alternate method.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, myself included, find the warp displacement a little easier, and all of the methods for getting into that, of which there are, I think now 4 methods that you can use. They're all very similar in terms of the time spent on them. So it's really just up to runner preference on what you want to go for.
And it looks like Infinite unfortunately missed a grenade to open the door into that ability cell there, but didn't realize it and door before finding it locked. So he had to go back, throw the grenade, and then come all the way back to the cell once again. That's unfortunate time loss.
Yeah, definitely. Now that we're starting to get later into the run and there's not a whole lot left to do, this lead that Lusther has in this kind of pseudo race is pretty significant. So I would be surprised if Infinite is able to catch up at this point. It would take a bit of a catastrophe.
Speaking of catastrophes, Infinite, I believe, did not get the Progression Vault ability cell. If he doesn't realize it and finishes out the run, that unfortunately will make it invalid. Hopefully he realizes that he forgot it and after this can go back and get it. But that's so easy to forget, especially since his movement in that area was thrown off by missing the grenade there. That can definitely just dominate your mind and you don't realize that you actually needed to go and get that cell as well.
Yeah, and at this point in the run, there isn't really a kind of careful ability route, so you don't notice if, oh, I don't have this number of points to spend at this point. You just have a whole bunch of points and you're spending them whenever you need to. So it can be very difficult to realize that you're 1 ability point short compared to where you should be.
So if he realizes it, now is when he's going to go get it. Nope, unfortunately, he's continuing on with the normal route. I don't think Infinite realizes he forgot it. That's going to be just such a heartbreaker when he gets to the end of the run here and sees 32 out of 33 ability cells.
Yeah, there's a chance that if he has any splits that are based on ability cell count, that they won't go off and he may realize it at a later point in the run. So still a chance that he'll kind of notice that. Also, we'll be looking at the pause menu for a couple of these tricks, so could also notice the ability cell count is off there.
All right, so Lusther is rapidly approaching the end of the run here. We just have a few cells, interestingly, right at the close, right at the start of the game, which actually end up being the final ones we collect. So he just needs to collect a few cells here. There's one here, there's an underwater one, and then there's one grenade lock one, and then he just has to go on to the end of the game. So very, very close to the end here for Lusther.
And Lusther has said that he'll be attempting a very difficult trick at the very end of this run. There's kind of an alternative method in order to warp displace to Ginso that puts you immediately out of bounds and saves having to do a tear clip there, which is kind of the safer, more consistent method that a lot of runners go for. So I'm very excited to see how that goes. I believe Lusther will be backing it up because the potential for failure is very great in attempting that trick.
Alrighty, so Lusther is now setting up a save here. This is going to be part of the setup. He's going to try and warp displace into the Ginso tree. A little bit odd that the Ginso tree is how we get to the final area here, but if you look at the map, you can actually see that the Ginso tree is kind of there's just out of bounds area between the top of the Ginso tree and the final dungeon. So essentially, we can use the Ginso tree as a way to, in this case, warp displace into the room of Horu where the final cell that we need to grab is.
It looks like Lusther was a little too far left, but was able to kind of get back right and is successfully to that energy cell. So incredibly well done. That's a very difficult trick to pull off. There's just no, it's much harder to tell where the platform position is at in order to do these warp displacements compared to using that lower kind of platform on the water. So that's incredibly impressive.
I'm not an expert on that displacement, but I believe it soft locks if you mess it up, or it has potential to soft lock at least. So it's quite dangerous to mess up. And fortunately, he gets through and is now going to out of bounds one last time to get to the very end of the final escape. Behind this save menu here, he's going to use a fish to rocket jump up to the top, and then we'll spend a point to skip part of the final cutscene. But essentially done with the run, now just has to get this final cutscene skip and then hold right. That looked maybe a little early, but I think it should work.
I feel like
successful.
I feel like I always think the save is a little early, and then every time I am thinking that watching a run, it's actually fine. So At this point, I've decided that it's basically the same as Fast Stompless. If you're not the runner, you just can't tell if they save them.
Yeah, probably true. All right, so Infinite is collecting a lot of the Glade cells as well, quite close to the end. We'll see if he goes and gets that Progression Vault cell before finishing. Hopefully remembers to go back there and grab it, or realizes, if he does realize he forgot a cell, hopefully he realizes that that's the one that it was. All right, so Lusther going to finish with a 45-28 or so by my count. Or sorry, 42, 48, 42, 46. So that's definitely going to improve his average. He was, what, like a 44 or so? So not only is this a good time below his average, but it's also going to kick out, I believe, a 47 that was part of his 3 as well. So this is going to very, very much improve his average time here.
Yeah, and this is like within a minute of Lusther's PB, so very impressive run. Some very impressive recoveries from some small mistakes that kind of could have turned ugly if Lusther didn't know how to handle those. So that was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, very much agreed. Solid run out of Lusther, and especially very solid to have the presence of mind to get a run that good after some of those problems at the beginning, the technical problems with the resolution, and seemed like he needed to change a few settings about his game and things like that.
And it looks like Infinite has realized that he's missing a cell and is at least zeroing in on the correct area, so may already know which cell it is that he missed. This is definitely a noticeable time loss, but way better than finishing this run without the cell, which would totally invalidate the run. And will now be heading back the way he came to the Glazed Teleporter, having now finished out this area.
This is when you wish you were playing Rando and could just alt-R back to the start.
Yeah, it'd be quite a lot easier if we didn't have to do some of this movement back to the Glazed Teleporter every time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, so we're going to see Infinite most likely do sort of the normal warp displacement with Ginso, rather than setting up this higher one and going straight into Horu. The way that the normal progression works is we're going to go over to the teleporter here and use that same tilting log as a way to get to the top of the... right before you start the Ginso escape, and we're going to use a Terra Clip to get out of bounds and charge dash through the out of bounds void to get into that R1 area.
It actually looks like Infinite is not going for the warp displacement at all. We'll just be teleporting over here and then just doing this movement up to the spider, which is not quite as fast, but if you don't have a good setup for that Terra Clip, it's warp displacement, it's much more consistent, as you can end up stuck in the wall having to redo it.
Good job not triggering the cutscene there. There's a pretty wide area where a cutscene will start, where it tells you about the Ginso escape. But if you can stay in the air over that entire section, you're not forced to watch it. Oh, unfortunately, doesn't quite make it this time and is having to trigger this little cutscene here. Takes maybe about 10 seconds or so.
Yeah, a little bit longer. Infinite had the UI on, so ended up having to skip through a little bit of dialogue there. Might be... I'm not exactly sure what's going wrong. It can be difficult without knowing the exact inputs. Infinite may have done a charge dash Terra Clip here, which can end up pushing you a little bit further to the left, which has the greater potential of avoiding you in this area just to the left of the Ginso tree. So that could be what's happening here, but it's especially difficult to see behind the SA right now.
Yeah, and this is just so tough because you have to go pretty far away and avoid this cutscene every time. Looks like he does get a good stomp timing here. Now has to make sure to do these charge dash saves at the right time to get himself into R1. I think this looks pretty good. Okay, so he gets into R1, but not right by the cell. So this is better than failing it for sure. Just has to move up through here and get himself to the energy cell and then come back out.
Yeah, it's definitely, in general, better to be a little high here than a little low. I guess as long as you're kind of along that right wall there by the cell, it's all fine. But as soon as you get below that, things get real ugly if you mess up. So ends up being fine. Now just needs to do a couple sequence of clips. Oh,
that's a horrible death to take. Oh no, and that's going to put him back into the out of bounds section here. And it looks like he's in kind of a weird position to get into R1. Oh, this is so bad because it's going to be really hard to get through here without hitting those spikes and dying, unfortunately. He may have to end up going to a backup save here. I don't know if this is savable here.
Yeah, this is actually higher than I realized. It might be possible to make it out of kind of the left upper area of this ceiling. Um, I'm not exactly sure how the hitbox for those spikes continue. Yep, is it.
Makes it through, very nice. Manages to find a little bit of an avenue through those spikes to get back out without dying. Is going to come and collect this cell. May decide to take a save or something here to make sure this doesn't happen once again.
Please save.
You have so much energy, please save. Not saving, what a monster. Well, he's confident in his movement. I'll certainly give him that. He is not worried about this happening once again.
Yeah, the good thing is you do have a lot of health through this area in most scenarios. I think Infinite is a little lower than normal, as was dying to those spikes trying to get back in. So that can turn a kind of Horu that you're normally not afraid of into a Horu that can kill you in surprising ways.
Now, as we mentioned before, he did a charge dash clip there, it looks like, so that's going to make his stomp timing to get through here a little tough, perhaps.
Oh, apparently, actually, the spikes in the ceiling are instant kill, which would explain why Infinite was dying to them in one hit. So it's good to know. I guess I just haven't spent enough time playing around with the spikes in the ceiling of Horu.
I mean, those spikes are large and red. I just assume they all instant kill anyway. Having a little trouble getting onto this branch here. Oh no, he got through, but he's stuck underneath a branch that he has to do. Having a little trouble getting the timing here. This is pretty tough, especially when you're charge dashing, because you just move so quickly, and the area that you have to stomp into is very, very small. But looks like he's through and into the final escape here. Just going to do his fish strats and then the final cutscene skip, and he will be finished as well.
Yep, and into the final cutscene now. Just needs to do that same save and reload to skip it. And I think that was fine. We'll see upon the reload. Although missing it is just a small time loss. You don't skip as much of this cutscene. There's no kind of real negative consequences. So Infinite will be finishing shortly. It'll be I think a low 50. I'm not actually sure how long this cutscene is from that point in it.
And not the sort of time Infinite was looking for, unfortunately, but you get to do up to 7 races, and your top 3 are used as your average. So it's not the end of the world. This one will not end up being one of the ones that's counted. So all that happens is he lost one of the opportunities to improve his average, but it's not like it's going to hurt his average time. He should still be in 8th place and slated to make bracket.
Yeah, and an 8th place finish means that he will be most likely facing off against either Ronnie or Sigma. We'll see who is able to pull out that first place time. They're currently tied, but we will be able to kind of pull out the milliseconds of their runs to determine a first place seed from there, assuming neither of them does a run in our last qualifier for this tournament, which is today at 10 p.m. Eastern. So we won't be broadcasting that, but I'm sure there'll probably be a couple of runners trying to get that last qualifier in to improve their time.
And congrats to Lusther on a really, really good win there. Again, not a direct win in the sense that these guys were not competing to knock each other out or anything. They were just trying to improve their average, but did win the broadcast race that we have here. So GG to him.
Yeah, and that very good time brought Lusther's time down to a 43.11. It was previously a 44.40, so that's a huge improvement with a really nice final race of the qualifiers for Lusther.
Yeah, he can feel very good about that. Safe to make brackets and hopefully safe to dodge the Executioners, Sigma, and Ronnie. Unfortunately, it's just monster runners all the way down, so no matter what position you are in bracket, it's going to be extremely difficult to progress. So Godspeed and good luck to all 8 of them that have to go up against each other.
Yeah, the bracket is terrifying. Having it be only the top 8 runners in this category, even if it's not the most popular category out there, they're still all spectacularly good at this game. So very excited for that bracket. We will be starting quarterfinals matches next week. None of those are scheduled yet since we don't know the final matchups, but they'll be on the Speed Gaming schedule. You can check that out. I think if you use the Ori command, it'll take you to that, or it's speedgaming.org/Ori.
And so is the qualifier tonight the last one, or are there any tomorrow?
Qualifier tonight is the last qualifier. There will be nothing tomorrow. We have just the day off.
All right, so we should know our final bracket after the race tonight, fortunately. Going to be very excited to see those last results coming out.
And that's all from us today. Thank you very much for joining me on Commentary Roos. Thanks to Nightfighter and Skull in our truck, helping out with those trackers and giving us some stats. Thanks to Griffs for restreaming, and thanks to everyone for watching.
Yes, thank you so much. Very much enjoyed this. I hope you all have a fantastic day.